This man is Richard O'Brien. He is the writer and composer of the Rocky Horror Show. And when he wrote and composed the Rocky Horror Show, he did not put a lot of forethought into what he was doing. He compared the process to doing a crossword puzzle. He also described the show as wish fulfillment. He liked aliens, and he liked rock and roll, and he liked sex. So he put all that stuff into a musical. And that's all Rocky Horror is to him. A fun, musical comedy about his youthful obsessions, without any message or social importance. But I believe that themes are an emergent property of storytelling, and that they exist whether or not the writer consciously intends them to. And for a work of fiction to remain as popular as Rocky Horror has, those themes have to resonate with multiple generations of audiences. The usual explanation for Rocky Horror's enduring popularity is the queer representation. But when people say that, they're usually not thinking about how queerness is represented in the story. Queerness is at the center of the story, but it's not portrayed in a rosy light. And I contend that Rocky Horror is actually a conservative cautionary tale, a phrase which here means based and red-pilled.
Oh, we got moving signs!
The status quo is portrayed positively at the beginning of the film. Brad and Janet are normal young adults who just graduated high school, and now they're in a rush to get married because that's what all their friends are doing. That might sound strange in the current year, but this is the 1970s, and they look happy. And damn it, Janet! It's a straightforward love song without any critique beyond Janet getting way too excited about the ring. When our audience surrogates are introduced to the sexual revolution, it's through a harmless but sexually charged dance that involves pelvic thrusts! I know that pelvic thrusts are meant to be sexual because the Kids Bop version changed that lyric.
But it's the way you say it that really drives you insane.
I think it's worth mentioning that in the stage show, upon which the movie's based, there's additional dialogue right before the time warp, where Riff Raff and Magenta discuss Eddie.
It's one of the master's affairs.
Oh, lucky him.
You're lucky. He's lucky. I'm lucky. We're all lucky.
All except Eddie. Eddie?
The delivery boy.
His delivery wasn't good enough.
The master only wanted to help the boy better his position.
Now that is very commendable.
Yes, it seems like only yesterday since he went
Where?
to pieces.
Because this dialogue isn't in the movie, we don't get any hint of who Eddie is until he shows up later on. Cutting that dialogue does add more intrigue about his role in the story, but I think it's still worth talking about because of the insight it gives to what the time warp actually means. Brad and Janet show up, Riff Raff randomly starts reminiscing about Eddie, and then he and the party sing a song where the title and chorus are about doing the same thing over and over.
Click the nuts, la 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 la. Click the nuts, la 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 la.
After the time warp, we meet the real main character of this story, the Gatsby to Brad and Janet's Nick, Dr. Frank N. Furter. He takes an immediate interest in both of them, but they don't eclipse his current obsession with a child that he intends to grape.
Right.
I'm not reaching here. Rocky is physically an adult, but he is mentally a toddler. He doesn't speak except through internal monologue during the songs. He has no idea what weights are or what sex is, but thankfully Frank is happy to show him. Brad and Janet bear witness to this debauchery because they're supposed to be using a phone, because their car broke down, and they went into the castle hoping to find a phone. But they're so taken in by Frank and Furter that they barely put any effort into finding the phone. This behavior makes sense at first because Rocky is a man-made man. That is a scientific achievement. That's obviously going to draw people's interest. But after Frank kills Eddie in front of everyone, Brad's willingness to stay and Janet's eagerness to stay don't make any sense. In fact, Janet seems more enthusiastic after Eddie dies than before. Before Eddie's death, she says that she's not attracted to Rocky because she doesn't like men with too many muscles.
Well, I don't like men with too many muscles.
After Eddie's death, she says that she's a muscle fan.
I
And as if the murder itself was not enough of a warning, the song that Eddie sings before he's killed is a literal warning. Eddie says he used to think he was divine before a cosmic light came into his life.
It don't seem the same since cosmic light came into my life. I thought I was divine.
Apparently, he used to date Frank's other groupie, Columbia. It's unclear whether he left Columbia for Frank or whether they were in some kind of throuple or something, but the specifics aren't important. What's important is that both Columbia and Eddie ended up with Frank, and Frank chewed them up and spit them out, as Columbia says.
You chew people up and then you spit them out again.
Eddie paid the ultimate price, and Columbia misses what she had with Eddie. Richard O'Brien said that he originally wrote the song as an expression of childhood nostalgia. He was wondering what did happen this Saturday night when he dressed up sharp and he felt alright.
Whatever happened to Saturday night when you dressed up sharp and you felt alright?
The fact that he wrote the song about something else and then retrofitted it into his musical doesn't change the fact that it does have meaning within the context of the musical. This is what I mean when I say that themes are an emergent property of storytelling. By putting this song in this specific story, he turned a celebration of youthful nostalgia into mourning for what was missed. The theme that is emerging from this storytelling is that Frank is a homewrecker, or a life wrecker. He wrecks lives. After the song and after Frank murdering Eddie, the question we should all be asking, as I've said before, is why are Brad and Janet still there? And after ignoring the blaring red flags, Brad and Janet choose to stay the night, and they get raped. I've heard people say that what happens to Brad and Janet isn't really grape because it's so whimsical and silly. Look, he disguised his voice and then he wears a wig, ha ha ha. But grape by deception is a real crime. And after figuring out what's happening, Brad and Janet do try to fight him off before giving in. They give in because it feels good, and not like anything that they've ever felt before. When it's over, they immediately show signs of trauma. Well, Janet does, because Brad's song about how he's traumatized got cut. Janet specifically shows the hypersexuality that you might see in a grape victim. She says she feels released, that bad times are deceased, that her confidence is increased. But we saw that look on her face when she found out that Brad had slept with Frank. When she ran to Rocky, she didn't do so because she felt empowered. That's just how she's looking at it in hindsight. She ran to Rocky because she was desperate. The morning after Frank's wild night, Dr. Scott shows up. Presumably via car. I mean, how else would he get there? I doubt the bus goes to the spooky castle. Brad and Janet now have the best opportunity yet to leave. And they still don't. In fact, Brad almost tells Dr. Scott what happened to Eddie.
Eddie? I've seen him.
But Frank shushes him, and Brad complies. He is evidently Stockholmed by Frank. And in case you still haven't gotten the point somehow, Columbia gives a big speech about exactly what's wrong with Dr. Frankenfurter.
I can't stand any more of this. First you throw me away, and then you put me all over Rocky. You chew me up and you spit them out again. I loved you. Yeah, I loved you. I want to get me. Then I'll tell you I'll be nothing. Like a sponge. Take, and trail and love and emotion. You know I had enough. You got to me, Rocky. So niggas are rocking his ass.
And Frank replies with this line.
It's not easy having a good time.
Frank is a pure hedonist. Everything and everyone is just a means to the end of him having a good time. This movie that gets lauded for its queer representation depicts its only queer character as a hedonist whose lifestyle is a fetish. He actually says that he became a crossdresser because he saw the movie King Kong and wanted to dress just like Fay Wray.
As it clung to her thigh, how I started to cry, 'cause I wanted to be dressed just the same.
He didn't want to dream it, he wanted to be it, and that's become his slogan, which he forces everyone to say on repeat while having a pool orgy with him. The phrase "don't dream it, be it" sounds liberating, but in the context of this story, It means pursuing your desires with no regards for who you hurt and what damage you leave in your wake. It means making a man with the mind of a child so you can grape him. It means trapping two people in your castle so you can grape them. It means killing your ex-lover because he's no longer of any use to you. It means neglecting whatever mission you originally came to Earth to do, and then getting overthrown by your faithful servants.
Your mission is a failure. Your lifestyle's too extreme.
And when Frank tries to charm his way out of being executed, he acknowledges that his life of hedonism has been unfulfilling. But he still believes himself to be the victim because he was never truly happy. And he thinks that he's deserving of praise for recognizing this, which is why he hallucinates an audience applauding wildly for him. Then Riff Raff says he's not falling for it and he's still gonna kill Frank. And Brad says, "What's his crime?"
You're going to kill him? What's his crime?
After singing a song about how traumatized he is and being forced to participate in a pool orgy, Brad still cannot admit that he was wronged. Even more illuminating is Dr. Scott's response, that society must be protected.
You saw what became of Eddie. Society must be protected.
Exactly, Dr. Scott.
Society must be protected from the man who represents hedonism under the guise of liberation. The only cross-dresser in this movie is this awful man, Dr. Frankenfurter, and his desire to cross-dress is explicitly tied to his awful hedonistic lifestyle.
Which could mean that Richard O'Brien believes that transgender people are just perverts with cross-dressing fetishes who want to force their fetishes onto the rest of the world. But I don't think so.
The story does have some implicit assumptions about the kind of person who would cross-dress or be gay, but those assumptions are probably the result of Richard O'Brien's own closeted feelings. More than 30 years after Rocky Horror came out, he came out as third gender, which my cishet brain does not entirely comprehend. Not that I begrudge him for it. I understand that he still uses he/him pronouns, but takes estrogen, which is normally taken by trans people who identify as women. Whatever Richard O'Brien is, the fact that he was closeted for so long explains the contrast between the intoxicating world of Transylvania and the boring but clearly not evil world of 70s America. Call me an armchair psychologist, but I think that this script was Richard O'Brien working through his own feelings about being a closeted trans something. And the historic, unprecedented, not since duplicated cult following of Rocky Horror reflects this. You go to the movies once a week, you act like a degenerate villain, and then you go live a normie life for the rest of the week. The same way that Richard O'Brien, consciously or not, wrote a conservative cautionary tale, the audience, consciously or not, embodies its message. And its message is the same as the Cat in the Hat. That's what this whole video is really about, by the way. The fact that Rocky Horror is just an R-rated version of the Cat in the Hat. Anyone who understands what Rocky Horror is about, and still goes to those screenings, has surely internalized that same moral that Richard O'Brien probably internalized. Liberation and freedom and being authentic and pursuing pleasure are all fine as long as you don't hurt others in the process. It's fun to have fun, but you have to know how.
Thank you so much for watching this all the way through. This is my first video essay, and I'd like it if you leave some constructive criticism in the comments for me. That's much more valuable than liking or subscribing.